Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday morning devotional brought to you by Golden Isles Primitive Baptist Fellowship and HeartFlossTV. I'm Vernon Eckleberry, and this morning I've got a lesson for you entitled The Watcher on the Shore. But first, here's a sing-along praise chorus. We want you to sing as the Primitive Baptist Music Workshop Ladies Choir sings, "Glorify Thy Name." Thank you. Glorify Thy name. As you sing that, it prepares your heart and your mind to worship on this Lord's Day. The Watcher on the Shore. This is taken from John chapter 21, and we'll look first of all at the place where this event occurs. I should mention that the time is after Jesus' death and resurrection, during a period that he revealed himself to his disciples. He had already come to them twice in this 20th chapter of John, and now he shows himself to them a third time. And here's the way verse 1 reads. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and on this wise showed he himself. Now, of course, the Sea of Tiberias is the Sea of Galilee. Now, Jesus had told the disciples to meet him there before he ever went to the cross, before the resurrection, before all of these events that would transpire. Jesus told his disciples, as recorded in Mark 14:28, "But after that I am risen, I will go before you into Galilee." And they were to meet him there, but apparently they had forgotten. And the reason I think that's true is because when Jesus did reveal himself to the disciples on this occasion, verse 4 tells us, the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. They were not expecting him. So the place then is the Sea of Galilee. They were evidently in such a state of confusion at this time. Peter could think of nothing more to do than to revert back to their old trade, and he told his friends that I go a-fishing. And they say unto him, verse 3 says, we also go with thee. And there were 7 of them all together. And most of them were professional fishermen, and they set out and go out into the Galilee to catch their fish. And it was nighttime, which evidently is a pretty good time to fish those waters, and they would have carried a lantern with them. But a problem transpires. Here's what happens. After they went out, verse 3 says, they went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. All night long they dipped their nets into the sea, a sea that is full of fish, and they brought it back in, and it was empty each and every time. But you know, this is the way it is. When we set out to do something on whatever the enterprise might be, when we go it on our own and leave Christ out of it, it's never going to come to anything. This is what Jesus said, without me ye can do nothing. John 15:5. Oh, you can do something all right, but it won't come to anything. It'll only result in failure after failure when the Lord is not a part of it. So then we've seen the place and the problem. Now let's look at the presence that was there. The presence that was there on the shore during it all. Verse 4, but when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. So, unknown to our workers in the night, there's a watcher on the shore through it all. Each and every time they brought in an empty net, and each and every time they exclaimed their frustration at what was going on, Jesus was there, standing on the shore. They were never out of his sight, even though they were not aware of it. It reminds me of the time that Jacob left Canaan for the first time, going out to seek for himself a wife. It was the first time he had left the borders of that land, and the first night he laid his head down with a stone for a pillow, and he had a dream. And in that dream the Lord said, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and I'll bring thee again into this land. Well, when Jacob awoke, here's what he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. How many times has that been the experience of God's people through the centuries, that in those times of despair, in those times of failure, in those times when we have forgotten God. Yet He's there, and even when we don't know it. The hymn that we love to sing, Nearer My God to Thee, by Sarah Adams, is about that very encounter that Jacob had there on that night. And the words go, though like the wanderer the sun goes down, darkness be over me, my rest a stone, yet in my dreams I'd be nearer my God to Thee, nearer my God to Thee. Now, as in our text, whatever the night brings, Jesus is always nearer than we think. The 46th Psalm expresses that so beautifully. Psalm 46, beginning at verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will we not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, Selah. Yet in all of that, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. That's our Lord. That's Jesus, our intercessor, who watches, and at a time of His choosing, He intervenes. So then let's look at the provision that was waiting there for the disciples on the shore. After that long night, morning came and revealed Jesus. The watcher on the shore calls out to the fishermen out on the sea as the sun came up. And we read that, first of all, he shouted out, "Children, have you any meat?" And they answered him, "No." Well, Jesus knew they hadn't caught anything, but he wanted them to confess the frustrating night that they had had and how they had failed. "No, we haven't caught anything." Now they're ready to hear some instructions from whoever. We failed. Now they are ripe to hear these words. And Jesus says, cast the net. This is in verse 6. Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. Now, there's nothing magical about the right side of the ship, but the thing is obedience. You've left me out of this all-night fishing trip of yours. Now, let's do it my way. Let's go the way of obedience and see if that doesn't make a difference. Well, it did. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. Now, they didn't yet know who that was standing on the shore, but John was the first to recognize him. Verse 7 tells us, therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved, and that's the way John always referred to himself, that disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." And when Simon Peter heard that, he put his jacket on and he jumped in the water and he swam to the shore. And then the other disciples came in their little boat. And when they got there, you see, that wasn't all. There was more than just those nets full of fish that they had already harvested. Now there was even more. As soon as they were come to land, verse 9 says, they saw a fire of coals there, and the fish laid thereon, and bread. Jesus had prepared for them a scrumptious breakfast, just more than what they would ever have thought. So it is, Paul said, that God is able to do exceedingly abundant and abundantly and above all that we ask or we even think. That's in Ephesians 3:20. Now, the personal application here is simply this. No matter what your night of toil is, and you'll have to answer that for yourself. When have you had an experience like that of the disciples out on the Sea of Galilee? Or maybe right now you're experiencing something similar to that. No matter what, you have this message from this lesson this morning, and that is Jesus is watching. He knows what you need, and He knows when you need it. And no matter what, it's always going to be true. As the psalmist wrote it, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And now may God be with you until we meet again.